It's corny, has lower budget animation, the characters for the most part are one note, and the story ends on a very unsatisfying cliffhanger. And I loved it. The line between objectivity and subjectivity is one that always has to be redrawn because of these cases. On a literal level, there are a lot of negatives to look at, but all of the negatives I pointed out above all have some twist that makes them part of this show's strength. The corniness is used for laughs and allows for fun interactions to take place. The lower tier animation is supplemented by a visually appealing Dungeons and Dragons type perspective. The one-note characters don't overstay their welcome, which keeps the story fresh. Couple all of this with the interesting storytelling device of portraying the story like a retelling of someone's D&D campaign, and you have something worth talking about. So I'm going to be seeing how all these ideas take form in Epithet Erased. The layout is visually interesting. It goes from a 2.5D animation utilizing the character's flat designs for comedy, to a top-down perspective similar to a board game to easily display large distances, to short bursts of fluid animation to capture the needed intensity of some fight scenes. Personally, I've never seen this style of animation before, and I want to see more of it. This D&D feel makes everything more personable with its presentation, like I'm in the room as the campaign is going on. The plot is simple enough, centering around an amulet that can take away epithets, this universe's version of superpowers, from other people and everyone who's involved with trying to acquire it. At first, I assumed the sole protagonist was going to be Molly, however, over time many characters start to get the spotlight. Admittedly, this show is targeted at a younger audience, and because of that, there were some lower tier jokes that didn't land for me, but for every bad joke, there were two others to make up for it. The star of this show, however, is not really the plot, but in its story quirks. An example of what I'm talking about can be seen in the fight scenes. Instead of the viewer just seeing what the characters do and say, or a global narrator describing the events on display, the characters themselves narrate their own actions as if they're playing themselves in a game of D&D. It's a very interesting way to set up a fight scene, as it allows for the show to display the intent of an action alongside its effect. Normally, the way intent is conveyed is either through dialogue between characters or a monologue from a singular character, or implied intent. But here, instead of exposition type dialogue letting in the viewer on what each action in a fight scene was made to do, the characters themselves can tell us in an almost fourth wall breaking sort of way. Again, that feeling of being in the room where a campaign is taking place. On top of this, the fight scenes being done this way can save money, time, and animation scale by having the intrigue of the fight shift over to the commentary and cute animation quirks rather than solely on fluid fight choreography. And this style wouldn't work if the fights weren't at least interesting, and they do have ways of doing that. From the unique powers each person has to their personalities that shine through the combat. The powers were also interesting to see, specifically because they had the design of an ability in D&D where each person had their own set of, let's call them spells, that drain their stamina to use. This show just has style in its presentation, a style that fully complements the lighthearted story being told. Now, the characters are kind of hit or miss, with some being one note and not all that interesting, to some being multi-layered with strong personalities on screen. Percy is a near oblivious cop character, Giovanni is the living in his mother's basement wannabe, Ramsey is the sly con man. Each of them don't overstay their welcome either, which keeps the story fresh. The plot itself is interesting, with the story being separated in two distinct parts, at least for this season. The first half is at the museum, following Molly as the many groups try to take the epithet-stealing amulet. The second half follows Percy as she tries to track down the group that ended up stealing the amulet in the first part. This plot is simple, but with the variety of characters, scenarios, and presentation, everything stays fresh. It's not deep or complex, but what it lacks in those areas, it gains in simple, fun character interactions. I think what makes this story serviceable for me is that I didn't really know where the story was going, allowing for all the quick and straightforward events to hit harder than they would have in a predictable, linear plot structure. If you want to see what I'm talking about, Epithet Erased is on YouTube for you to watch the full first season right now. If you enjoyed, check out the playlist for more videos like this one. I hope to see you next time.